Good morning, Intenders.
Good morning.
Welcome and welcome back to Morning Intentions. Today is Wednesday, August 5th. Thank you for joining us for this month and for having the courage to know yourself. That's our theme of the month. That's our theme for August. And I want everyone to know, as we get started on this adventure through August, there is a part of us that does have the courage to know ourselves. If you never thought you had the courage to know yourself so far in your life, maybe it's scary, maybe you don't really want to think about it too much because you're going to feel a lot of shame, you'll feel a lot of guilt, maybe you'll have to look at past events that were really hurtful. There is courage in you somewhere. I just want you to stick with that, just keep that in mind. Everybody has a place inside of them that does have courage. You may not have accessed it, you may have forgotten about it, but that doesn't matter. As long as there's a place inside of you, and there is, you do have courage. Yesterday we talked about Carl Jung and the power of our unconscious. Remember that quote we gave you? Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Annette, is there anything that comes up for you when you hear that quote?
When you said that, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, how much do we do? And we don't even know what we're doing. We think we know what we're doing. But it isn't until we're willing to do this deeper work and understand what we do and why we're doing it that our eyes are opened. Can you say that one more time, though, for me?
Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
And you will call it fate. So way back, some guy who was born in the late 1800s, he and Sigmund Freud and others have had this message for us that we're all going through life and we think, well, this happens, this is out of control, this other thing just happens. And they're saying, wait a minute. If you want to understand why things happen and what goes on in your life, you got to understand how powerful your unconscious is. Even if what happens to you originates in somebody else, they treat you poorly or they do something that they shouldn't do, it's how we handle it. And we're all going to handle it in a different way, but it's how we handle it that is this unconscious pattern.
It's funny that you bring that up because I was thinking how many people who do bad things, whether it's the worst thing you can think of to something that's just maybe inconvenient and annoying, and it's not that bad on the grand scheme of things, but you still wish someone wouldn't do it. And all that range of misbehavior, how much of it is just coming from people's unconscious?
Well, if you talk to these psychoanalysts and these psychotherapists, they would say probably the majority. Until we really look at what goes on inside of us from this kind of observer position, is like watch yourself being the people pleaser or watch yourself, whatever the case may be. We're going to talk about the different Enneagram types and how they might show up through all the different topics that we want to discuss this month. But so much of this is compulsive. We don't know. We have this way of going about life that is unique to us, and yet it is driven by our unconscious patterns and programs and beliefs. So we wanted to talk today about unconscious beliefs. Some examples are like, I must do this. I should do this. I can't. I never. So when we think about the different Enneagram types, the Enneagram 1 is our perfectionist type. And they think that they should, they must, they have to. That drives them in their lives. The Enneagram 2 is like, oh, I must meet everybody else's needs. I'm always the one that people can count on. The Enneagram 3 is, I must achieve. I must be at the top of my class. I must be the best athlete. So these unconscious beliefs then drive us until we step back and see what's driving us. And they're these unconscious beliefs.
And not that that would be then an excuse, like, I'm sorry I yelled at you. That was my unconscious. And it's not that we then excuse our behavior, but then once we can start to see, where is this coming from? How did this even come into existence that I would have this type of reaction to the situation? Once we can start seeing, this is how I work, this is how I show up, even if it's not that great. And I wanted to start today off with that, my little thing about courage, because when we start to look at these unconscious patterns and programs, they're not always pretty. They're not always things that we would love to share and have everybody see.
Let's bring up the Enneagram 7 since you're an Enneagram 7.
Oh, let's do.
I said to you a while back, Ada, when you get into this mood, you're very reckless. And you looked at me like, what in the world? But then when you think about the Enneagram 7s that we know, they all have this reckless component to how they show up when they're stressed. Especially if they're going through a big stressful event, they're reckless. One would say, well, we don't want to say, well, this is them being reckless and then there's no accountability. That's not what this is about. And that's not what understanding yourself is about. Understanding yourself is like, I didn't ever realize it, but I have this propensity to be reckless when I'm very stressed. And so then when you're stressed, you can think about that. And if you start having ideas, you can say to yourself, is this me being reckless? Like you can be your own check system. Being aware of how you show up when you're coming from a more wounded place, a more hurt place. Number one, the recklessness isn't who a 7 truly is.
That's that personality that we talked about yesterday.
Yes, that's that personality. So we don't want to say, and we did say yesterday, we said, you are not your coping strategies. You are not your recklessness. And we want to hold ourselves to account because self-accountability is where freedom lies. When I hold myself accountable and I say, I know how I show up from my wounds. I don't want to do that. I need to learn a better way. Then you can hold yourself to account. You're not then at the mercy of your coping strategies. And so today, when we're talking about unconscious beliefs, stepping back and watching yourself have these automatic behaviors, automatic thoughts, especially if they're like, I must do this, I should do this, I can't do this, I always do this, I never do this. If you have those absolutes in your vocabulary and your thoughts, think about where did those originate? Anything that is that exaggerated and that absolute is probably part of a judgment that you're making and an evaluation that you're making about yourself.
So to get us started, we're going to have a curiosity challenge. This isn't an intention. It's nor is it a reflection question or curiosity question. This is an awareness building exercise.
We've never had a curiosity challenge, Ada. What are you thinking?
Here's our curiosity challenge. For the next 24 hours or for the rest of your life, check in with this. How often do you say or think the following? I must, I should, I have to, I can't, I always, and I never. How often do your thoughts have those following messages? How often do your thoughts contain those words? How often do you say those words? I must, I should, I have to, I can't, I always, and I never. So that's our curiosity challenge. Checking in because we can get clues to our unconscious by what we say and what we think. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our day is better because you are part of our day. See you tomorrow.
See you then.